Radio Rahim here with Frank Warren. You talk in a way that makes me think you're the kind of guy, it's like, okay, the show's on Saturday. If the show on Saturday is great, that's my narrow focus. I am focused on making that the next thing onto the next one. So what's that show when you're there in the moment and you look around, you're like, wait a minute, Frank Warren's made it a little bit further. Like this now.
No, don't think about it. Never, ever thought about it. Never thought about it. It just happens. You just make it happen. So that's it. You make it happen. You can't do it. All right, we'll have a go. We'll give it a go. See if we can make it happen.
If you don't think about it ahead of time, there's not to be a moment when you realize it, though.
Yeah, you realize. But you know what? I don't need no one to pat my back or feed me any ego. It's irrelevant for me. I mean, I meet up with my friends from when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. From when I was a kid, I meet them. We meet up probably every 6-8 weeks, especially before COVID. We used to meet up a lot. Go out, they all come from different, they all got to do different things or did do things. They're all my age. Mm-hmm. Did do, different. One's a couple of rascals, One's a cab driver. They're all, just from all the kids from the streets I lived in. And there's just talk like we did back then. There's no bullshit or anything. It is what it is.
When you break through and have a world champion, a TV deal, and show after show, now you're not just kind of an up-and-comer, but you're starting to compete with big money guys. You're kind of competing with established guys who were established before you even started.
Correct.
So what's the change then in the relationships and the business for you?
Bigger house, car, better lifestyle. I've always sort of had always liked my clothes, always had nice suits, I've always got a tailor and better tailor. That's it really.
Yeah, but the competition, these guys aren't just going to let you take a piece of the pie that's bigger than the slice they want for you.
I don't think life is like that. I mean, I just think you just get on with it. But when you started out doing what you're doing, what did you say? I'm going to go and do it. Do you look around and say, I'm better than all them, I've done this? I don't do that. I just, the proof in the pudding is longevity, delivering, and continue to do it. And more importantly, more than anything, is to enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy it, then you're just a sad bastard. And I don't like to think I'm a sad bastard. I mean, you've been at me a couple of times. I think you
have a good time.
I enjoy myself, and that's how I've always been. But I've always enjoyed myself. I've never, for me, this is coming in here is fun. We're always laughing and joking in here, and it is what it is. But I don't look at things. I don't think that I want to be the king of the hill, or I want to, because you never be. No one is ever going to take over boxing at this moment in time.
Maybe not now, because like you say, the world's a lot smaller and the media's a lot bigger. Right.
At this time.
At this time. But at that time, he's got ginormous personalities. Don King, you couldn't tell Don King in the 80s
him and I were partners.
Isn't it King Vision?
We were partners for 4 years. 50-50 partners.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, Frank. What? Like, that's another level from a guy.
I had some real good times with Don, some good times with him, and it just it turned a little bit sour at the end, which is a shame, but it did. And
all right, well, how do you become partners 50-50 with a guy like Don King, an American?
Well, done some show. I think we just hit it off, and we were friends. I hit it off with Bob as well. My very first world title fight I did was with Bob Arum, because he had Don Curry. But we hit it off, and we had I was doing stacks of shows. I was doing a lot of shows on Showtime. A lot of shows back then. Jay Larkin, who was the boss at the time, unfortunately he's passed away now. He's a great guy. He's an Anglophile. He loved coming over here. And Kawasakis, the Hattons, all those fighters, before they won world titles or whatever, all their fights were shown in America. I started off with another promoter out there, Gary Shaw. We started doing the Showbox series. We launched that. We used to do Showbox series in America and over here. So all those things were happening. Lots and lots of things were happening. And Don, that was back in when was that? Sort of mid-90s, early 90s.
Was that the first time you had a big promotion partner? Because you talk, right?
Yeah, we worked together. We worked together, and it didn't work out at the end. It's
But what did Don King see in Frank Warren that made him think he wanted to work with you?
I developed a lot of good fighters, and we had a real good TV deal. Sky TV started pay-per-view, which was huge. So there's a big thing there. So there's a big, there was a gate there that was opened, and we hit it off to start. Well, I knew him I met him. I first met Don in the 70s, going to a show in America. That's the first time I met him.
What show was that?
No, I can't remember. It was one of the shows. I just go to the fights. I was a kid then.
Yeah.
So it was me sort of early in 20s out there. And Bob, by the way, met him very young. But met him, and we've done some good shows together. We've done some really good fights. Frank Bruno and Mike Tyson fight, McCall, Frank Bruno, which was over here. We did that tragic fight between Ben and McClellan, which was a very tragic fight, but we did that. Lots and lots of really good quality shows.
And those are big shows you're talking about. On the road to big shows, obviously, are smaller shows. Yeah. While Don King and Bob Arum, they've got the Ali. They've had a bit of a more established reputation as promoters. They've probably got a bit bigger bank than you at the time. So how does that association become something that's a reality? I mean, that's a bit of a step up for you at the time.
We talked about it, and we just become partners. He looked like at one stage he thought he was going to prison. He got arrested, and he asked me if I'd run the business. And, in America, he said, would I run it? And I thought about it, and I didn't want to do it.
Why not?
Because I knew there'd be a big fallout. There would be, and I preferred it as it was. And he didn't go to prison, so he was lucky.
Is it, even at the time, difficult for you to trust other promoters?
It's not bad. I mean, look, you get a vibe, don't you, off of someone. You like them or you don't. Someone can be a really nice guy and a bit of a scoundrel, and you think he's an arsehole. Deep down, I've got this saying, you're over 21. So whatever you choose to do, that's what you choose to do, and you get on with it. And if it don't work, then walk away. I'm not getting married to him.
But, if this is, career of yours is the dream and you're doing it every single day, your family's involved, it might be more consequential than a marriage. You can, get out of a personal relationship sometimes a lot easier than a lifelong career.
Well, I've got to have it. I mean, we had a court case, Don and I got settled out of court. I got all the contracts back because he had interest in a lot of fighters and vice versa. So we split all that up. I got my fighters back, got my TV deal back and everything, and he got paid a sum of money, and that was it. It was a settlement.
All right. So where does that place you then? Now you
plays me. I just got on with life. Got on and run a show the following week, same as I always do.
All right. Well, you're in this relationship with arguably one of the biggest promoters in history.
Probably that time he was, yeah.
Well, it would seem to be still beneficial for you to stay in that relationship unless something really is going sour. If it's beneficial for me to stay in there, I would have stayed in it. So, I ended it. Right. So that's the curiosity. What's the reason?
I didn't want to be in it anymore. I didn't like it.
You didn't like him, or you didn't like?
I didn't like what he did. So that was it. I liked him, but then the way things panned out and what happened, I'm done with that. I didn't need it.
What does he do differently than how Frank works?
What did he do?
You said you didn't like how he did.
I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of it. What happened at the time, I did not like what he did. He knows what it is. He knows what he did. And that was no good to me. And if I'm working with someone, I can't work with someone like that. And I told him, I'm done. See ya. Bye.
Having the hands on the purse strings, being able to make the deals independently, you have the opportunity.
I've always been able to make the deals independently.
Right. That's because you're the promoter, right? Yeah. So you can tell the fighter everything. You can tell the fighter some of the things.
What do you mean?
In other words, you can be transparent, right? Or you can not be transparent.
But I don't understand that thing about transparent. It's really simple, as I said to you earlier on. You've got an event. If somebody believes their value as a fighter, then a big event, and they're asking for ridiculous money that it doesn't happen, you say to them, right, here's the pot. This money's all going to this pot. It'll be sent from this TV company, there's no that your accountants, everybody can do it. And when it gets to that pot, they split it up. Whatever it is, it is. If it makes $10, you take your percentage, you've got to pay the opponents and whatever, or if it's too big, you take your half, and out of our half, say to the fighter, you take yours and we take our percentage. That's it. But most fighters say, I want the guarantee of and so then there is the reason why sometimes a lot of fights don't get made.
But there is also the reason why a lot of promoters say, oh, I got a bad reputation, but when I actually lay out all my expenses and what it costs to put this on.
What expenses are they? Your expenses are really simple. It's the cost of the venue, the cost of the undercard, cost of the publicity. It's all straightforward stuff. There's no rocket science. What expenses? I know what expenses.
Have you seen a Don King expense sheet?
No, I've also seen in his defence fighters who've taken advances, and then at the end of the day, once the advances are paid back and they paid their managers and they're left with whatever the money they've spent before the fight, I thought I only got this a bit of money, that's all I got. But no, you had the money up front. You had a large chunk of it up front. I've seen that. And that's in defence of this one particular boxer. I know that was the case. But I'm not here to defend him or anyone. I know what I do, and that's it. And you've got a process. If you do something wrong and you've got a licence, you go before the British Boxing Board of Control and have a hearing. You make a complaint or you sue someone.
And like you say, you know what you do, right?
Yeah.
But you also know how easy it would be to do things less ethically. So
in what way?
In that the money starts with you. You're running the show. So you could
listen. In the age we're in now, you're not printing another lot of tickets, are you? Everything's done on computer. Right, you're talking. So what you're theoretically, what you're saying is, so you're going to do a show at Wembley Arena. So you're asking the arena to be complicit with you in printing 2 lots of tickets. Do you think that a public corporation is going to do it? You're going to ask. In our case, it's now TNT Sports, that's owned by Warner Bros. Please, this is what I want you to do. Don't declare that money. Put that to one side privately, and come on.
It may be more difficult now because of computers, but this is a new age. There's a time you get all these printed tickets, promoter buys them up, there's a sellout, and then second, market.
Well, it depends what their deal is. I don't do secondary market. I'm against the secondary market. We don't do StubHub and all that. I think I've been saying that for quite a few years. I don't get involved in all that shit. I'm not interested in that. There's the tickets, sell them, and that's what it is. Everybody's got different ways of doing their business. Good luck to them. And at the end of the day, if you're in a business where if you're doing something with a fighter, like we do with a couple of fighters, big who are main track, everything's there for them to inspect. If that's the type of deal we did, if you're asking for a guarantee, here's your guarantee, or you want it, here's the purse you want. There's your purse. If I lose money, I'm going to lose money. If I make a lot of money, you got paid. If I break even, you got paid. That's your choice.
And you think that fighters not only understand or are comprehensive of that, but are they fair in it? Like you talk about.
You don't deal with it. Let me tell you something. Do you think the fighter comes in and every fighter's got a lawyer, every fighter's got an accountant? What planet are you? This ain't fucking 1930s, 1940s. That's what you're dealing with. And by the way, a lot of the people you deal with are clueless, to be quite honest, who they go and find to represent them. A lot of them are clueless. I think they do them a disservice. But that's their choice. And they have to be independently advised. They come in with their people and do their deal. That's it. And you sign a contract. They're your obligations. Show up. These are my obligations. And that's it. That's it.
Is it easier now or more difficult now to deal not just with fighters, but with all these elements?
The world's changed, isn't it? The world's changed to what it was. Listen, most of the deals I did years ago was a handshake. Didn't need a contract.
This is what, okay, Frank, this is what I'm talking about.
Now, a handshake's not worth the paper it's written on.
So if the deal's a handshake, they got to trust you. You got to trust them.
Yeah.
And so in those days, when you're doing handshake deals in very little paper, yeah, it works.
It worked for me.
Did it ever not work for you?
Yeah, I've had a couple of times where people have not kept their word, but that's life. Okay. Do you think that's something that's purely boxing? Let me ask you: have you ever been for a job and you've been promised the world? Leave this TV game. Come and work for us. Come and work with it. Have you done that?
Other channels have done that.
Other channels.
Yeah.
Have you done that?
I've not gone anywhere. I'm still here.
Oh, you're still the same one.
Yeah.
Do you know other people who've done that?
Yeah.
And they complain about. So don't keep saying it's just boxing. That is the world. There are people who are like that. That's it. But see, boxing's an easy target, so people think.
You talk about handshake deals and how that kind of thing was the contract of the day, a man's honor, a man's word. And now we're in an era where it's all computers and paperwork and lawyers,
correct,
and managers.
And you've got to dot the I's and cross the T's. That's what you have to do now.
And there's a moment between that transition where the old school guys either make it into the new era or they fall away. Yeah,
That's exactly right. You got to move with the times.
And sometimes in that crucial, pivotal moment of a crossroads, you got to come through some things that you might never have anticipated. You had to fight for your life, not just your business. I don't know how many people in business have been around as long as you have, but I know most of them didn't have to, get up from a hospital bed in a week's time with less than a lung.
That was a long, long time ago. Yeah, well, listen, it was what it was, and I say my mentality is really simple. You got to live for the day and just get on with it.
You say you got to live for the day, but knowing in a moment that it could all go away. Forget about business. Literally, it goes dark. Like your days are done. Very few of us face that moment and come through it. What's that moment like? You're still a young man. One moment everything's swell. You got to fight on that night. You're stepping out of a beautiful car. Next moment, could be the last.
Yeah, it was. That night was. It was surreal. And at the end of the day, I mean, my wife was pregnant with our fourth child, Henry. And I got out of the car. I just got out of the car. As I got out of the car, I heard a couple of bangs. And I thought it was another car backfiring. And, the exhaust going off. And I looked around, and there's this guy standing. I remember he was shaking a bit. And I thought it was a joke to start with. Then I realised it wasn't. But he was too far away from me to sort of. It was too much distance in between us. And then he was shaking, and I heard a click, and nothing happened. And then bang, and then I felt this pain. I felt it here, come out here, because the bullet went in there and come out there. And my partner, who's a lawyer, who's Oxford educated, very educated man. He was my partner, and we owned London Arena back then. He jumped on him and wrestled him to the ground. And he was very, very well spoken, real English, well spoken. And I remember him screaming out. He said, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" And next minute, wrestling with him.
That's the kind of friend you want to have.
Yeah, tell me about it. And anyway, he managed to get away. The fella ran off, and that was it. The next minute, I was being put in the back of a police van because the ambulances were on strike. There was a strike over here. So I was in the back of a police van, and they took me to this hospital that specialised in wounds, bullet wounds. And it was in an appropriate named place called Shooter's Hill. So that's where I went up. And they told my wife, it was, the police went to, my wife told me, they went to the house and they told her that there was a 50-50 chance that I'll make it. And they took her to the hospital. And I remember waking up the next day because they put me in and they knocked me out. And I had all, drains in my lungs and all that because it went through my lung. The bullet, and that was it.
When people get shot, unfortunately, I know more people that have been shot than a man should. And they say, if you hear the bang, you made it. You're not dead. When you
I heard a couple of bangs.
So you heard the first bang, and you didn't know what it was, and you heard a click. At that point, You're a wise guy enough.
I got it then.
To get an idea of what's happening.
If it had been nearer, I'd have done what John did. John Buttress, who was my partner, who jumped out it, the bit of distance because I had no alternative. But he was just too far away. So the nearer I got to him, the worse it was going to be for me.
Right. After the first click, did you try to rush him?
No, he was too. I didn't realise what was going on, and I see the click, and then I could see he had this mask on and all this bullshit, and that was that. But it was, and I was in hospital for about. I discharged myself from hospital. I lost a lot of weight. I think I lost about 36 pounds in a very short space of time.
How old are you on this day?
I was 37.
Look, that's like the prime of a guy's life who's been working.
Well, thank God I was in the prime of life. It helped me get through it.
You got a wife, another kid on the way, pregnant. You've got a show on. This is the dream. You're very successful. In that moment before, they rush you to the hospital and all this, you hear the click. Now here comes the gun. You know what's happening. Is it true? Is your life flashing before your eyes?
What I remember what I do remember, it was the surreal moment I'm lying in the back of this police van with a doctor, because at the shows you got the doctors there for the boxers. So one of the doctors is in the van with me.
Oh.
And he said to me, "Have you got a handkerchief?" Well, yeah. He said, "Well, hold it on the wound." I said, I'm holding this and I'm going, I'm trying to breathe. And all I could do was gurgling because all the blood was coming out my lungs and that. And it had exited out the side, and it came outside and went into my arm, the bullet. And it was bang, it was bang, and it was like, real old paddy wagon, and I'm sort of like in the back, it's like lying on the floor in the back. And then they put me on a trolley. And as you look at it, you see it in hospital moving that, and it was the lights as it was going past it, all the sort of the lights go boom, boom as you're going past it. It's a bit like a strobe thing. I remember that. And then they come in there. My uncle was with me because they was in the show. He was at the hospital, and then my dad was there as well. And I said, "Don't let them knock me out," because I felt if I got knocked out, I didn't think I was going to wake up. I said, "Don't let them knock me out." Anyway, they knocked me out because I've had to do the stuff on my lungs and that was it.
When you're putting that pressure on your chest, you're gurgling blood. You don't know it's
like a drowning sensation, like the bubbles. You feel the blood coming up in your throat.
You think you're gonna die?
No, I don't know what I was thinking. The only word I can think of it was surreal, because one, you don't expect that. Mm-hmm. And as I say, the thing there, and it was all happening quick then. There was no this slow motion bullshit they talk about. It was bang, 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 in and done.
You're arriving at the hospital. You got a kid on the way. I mean, I know you're a family man too, like away from this business. Emotionally, where are you?
Well, what I was concerned with the next day, I mean, I didn't see any of the news. No, I didn't see any of the news. That's all that kept me. But who did it? That's the obvious thing in your mind. What was this all about? I'm trying to think it through. It was, and then, and the biggest thing that I wanted, I was gasping, and I remember saying to the nurse, "Can I get a cold beer?" I don't even ask me why. I really fancied a cold beer. She went, "You can't have one of them in hospital." But then they got me a cold beer. And I don't even ask people. I wasn't a big beer drinker. I just fancied a cold beer. And that was it.
In those moments, a lot of people say it's really how your mentality works. You're thinking, I'm going to survive. You're staying positive. You're like, I'm going to make it through this. That could be the difference between you making it or not.
I just think that my biggest worry was for my family, because I was involved in London Arena. I was a majority shareholder of London Arena, which is purpose. It was the largest indoor purpose-built arena in London. It was in those days, 12,500 seats, multi-purpose arena. We had everybody play there, from Pink Floyd, Pavarotti, Sinatra's, everybody played there. And I knew, and we were 10 days away from doing a deal where we were selling 49% of it to a conglomerate of banks and institutions for a lot of money back then, a lot of money in Docklands. in London, in Docklands, was the area where they were building out. And it was about an 8 or 9 acre site. Huge, big deal for me, certainly a big deal for me. And that all fell apart. That fell apart because obviously I got shot, and Banks, what did this guy get shot for? And there was a lot of shit in the newspapers, untrue stories, which I had to get corrected, but they don't correct them the next day. His lawyers get on to him. It takes all this time. And it just all basically fell apart, and that killed the deal. That would have been a big, big deal for me, like massive deal. But you get on with it, and I had to discharge myself from hospital, which I did, and I was back to work 10 days later.
That deal was killed because now you seem like a gangster, like you're involved.
One of the newspapers said this gun that he shot with was used in a gangland shooting. Previously, headlined in the newspaper front page. It was a load of nonsense. It was bullshit. It was absolute bullshit. It was untrue. Because my lawyers get the police, usually a police spokesman, no names, but a police spokesman. And we want to know who it is, who said this. This is untrue. And it was painting this picture that there was some sort of, rather than a lunatic, it was some sort of gangland thing, which it wasn't. It's just nonsense.
And it was important to you that you not be branded a gangster.
Well, it's important to me, most important for me, that that everything didn't go bust. Because I had a lot of guarantees in there. I'd invested nearly everything I had in this thing, building this arena. It was a big deal. And, that was it.
What was tougher, losing the lung or losing the deal?
Well, it's half a lung.
Half a lung or the whole deal?
I've got to be honest, I've never even noticed that from the lung point of view. From that perspective, never bothered me really, I don't think. The deal, at the time, it was the deal. And obviously, I was worried. The most thing that I was worried about was my wife and my kids.
How did they handle it?
Well, my wife done brilliantly well because she took the brunt of it all. My kids, it's all on TV over here and in England, it's on in the newspapers, and it was keeping the kids. What you would, like any parent does, you want to protect your children. And it was a big thing. And I know when Susan was taking the kids to school, it's like, a lot of mums and people, parents, it was one of those jobs. So it was a tough time, but she done brilliantly well.
Not knowing who the assailant is or exactly.
I didn't know then. No.
Didn't know then, right? No. Were you worried for the safety of your children and wife?
Oh, no, that was dealt with straight away. I had people in my house looking after everyone.
So in a moment like that, you've almost lost your life to some mystery guy. You've lost the deal of a lifetime. Like, is there a moment where you're like who needs it? Like, this would stop. That would be the end of a lot of people's story.
I'll tell you, the truth of the matter is, I needed to get out there. I needed to get back in there, and that's what I did. Because unfortunately, the business, the London Arena, that was where we was at, and we was building this entertainment business. It was all. I was the head of it, so if I'm not there, who's there? That was where all the confidence was. I mean, we had a real good support from banks and everything, and it all just fell away. So that's the problem.
What is it inside you that makes you keep going after a moment like that? Like, at that moment, it seems like everything's...
That's stupid. Pig-headed.
That pig-headedness, has it served you well?
Sometimes. Must have done. I'm sitting here today, thank God.
And you say that you didn't know then who's done it. Did you know why?
Yeah, I mean, it's over the most ridiculous thing. And if I say why, I mean, you would your jaw would drop. He's a complete moron who did this because he would have been screwed because of some of the things that he said which were untrue, and he was facing a big problem.
He tried to kill you because of something he said.
He's a nut. He was a nut, and that's it. And the thing is, it's been so easy. Not anyone could do it. It's not hard to get retribution and do something like that. But if anything had happened afterwards, when I sort of knew and other people become a bit aware of it, then that would have been the end of me, for obvious reasons. It'd been my family would have screwed up everything. and I was fighting to keep this business, the business that I was in, the other business that I was involved with. It would have been the end of all those. So I had to bite my tongue. And believe you me, I had people who were coming to me, friends from when I was younger and so forth, all wanted to, I don't want nothing done, just leave it alone, and that's it.
How did it change you, the experience of not just the shooting, but then the fallout from the shooting?
I think it changed me that I didn't take my family so much for granted, because yourself in this, certainly boxing and other business, you do a lot of traveling, you're always on the road, you're doing this, you're doing that, and it became, hang on a minute, there's more to life than this. There is a bit more to life than this, and you've got to step back and try and enjoy life a bit more. As much as I enjoyed what I was doing, but enjoy what you actually have, which is got great kids and a family.
I mean, this kind of thing, it is life-changing, and being shot's not something you easily just get over. You're a big guy now, especially. You've got a lot of money and power and influence. I'm not talking about killing someone, but over the course of time, I'm sure you could have exacted some revenge, made this guy's life.
I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer. Listen, the young Frank, he'd have been gone. Where I come, he would have been gone, because it would have been a matter of that was how it had to be. So that young Frank moved away from that life and that era and everything. And for me, I'm a big believer in karma. What goes around, in its way, comes around. And this fella now, he's screwed his life up big time. And, I don't even, to be honest, it's only you mentioned, I don't even think about it. I mean, because it's just a negative thing that I don't need to think about. Because if I really sit and wind myself up, then I'd probably go and do something. But so I just push it out of my mind. But he is what he is. He's done nothing. He's ruined his own life more than he's ruined mine. That's for sure. And that's what it is. And where he's such a schmuck and such an idiot he was, when I didn't know who it was. I mean, could you imagine if I said it was him, and he'd have gone? He'd have gone to prison for whatever it was. That'd been the end of it. That's what would have happened. That's what would have happened. And he's lucky that's not how, stupidly nowadays, but back then, that's how I was brought up. That's the background I come from. So because I have got, whether they're right or wrong principles, but because of my principles, this schmuck is too stupid to understand, even then, that my principles stopped him going to prison. That's
the street code.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's how it is, and that's. I mean, I won't advocate that for my kids. I tell you that now, but for me, that's how I am, and that's how I was.
Is it necessary to forgive the guy?
I couldn't forgive him in a million years. No, if he walks in here, I'd smash him over the head with that chair. But I mean, I couldn't forgive him. I don't want to forgive him, but I don't think about him. I don't want to think about something. I'm a real big believer in positivity. I don't want to think about negative stuff like that. And it is negative. It's a long time ago as well. I mean, I guarantee you, I don't even think about it once every 5 years. And if I do, the only time it comes up is like an interview like this, which is very rarely now because it's old hat.
We've set the stage now, Frank.
But the one thing I found out, that was faster than a speeding bullet.
Yes, and a mild-mannered reporter had to remind you that. That's right. Yes, those are the two attributes of Clark Kent and Superman. But we have laid the groundwork for that, foundation of Frank Warren and where you come from and who you are and why you are who you are now. So to just reflect before we'll move forward in another half of this interview on another day, because your life has been long and there's so much there, we can't get it all in one bite. But the guy that we've been talking about all day, what part of him is responsible for the success in the second half? You built this thing. That's the foundation's one thing. How do you make the structure so big and solid?
I think, being really honest, I think a couple of things. I think it's my determination, my attitude that, I will get through whatever and make the best of a situation. We'll always, whatever it takes, I'll do to get there. You know, I don't look on if it don't work out for me, all right, fine. Wipe your mouth with that one, on to the next thing, and I'll make sure that was. But what has happened today is I've got a couple of my boys now in the business, and it's changed the whole dynamic of the business as well. We are successful, and they've helped in a big way to bring success to the business. And I didn't want them in the business, by the way. I did not want them. They're all very well educated, all went to university, all got degrees. I didn't want them doing that, but they did it. They did come in. I didn't realise that whilst I'm doing all this travelling, they're watching these events on TV and getting seduced by it.
Right.
Because like, you know, they were at boarding school, so they'd come home. If they come home weekends, they're watching the fights. I'm not there. I'm travelling back on the Sunday in the morning, wherever it is, if it's from the States, whatever. Time I get back, they're gone back to school. But was what they were doing, and so on. They got, as I say, they know more about boxing than I do, the history of things and on it. And there's, George is the CEO of Queensberry. He's doing a magnificent job. Francis has gone out and done his own thing now with management company. He's got some very good young fighters that he's working with and bringing through. He's doing extremely well. And I'm very proud of him. And I've got, a couple of my other sons are doing well. I've got 2 daughters, so it's good. But I sort of sometimes I sit. They sort of say to me, "Oh, shh, be quiet." They hold me up a bit because I can, don't do it like this. Do it like Dad does it. But I'll sit back. You're right. You get on with it and do it.
A lot of businessmen and entertainers have a hard time with what it means to be away from the family when you're building a business and a family at the same time.
Yeah, I think in any aspect, whether you're running a big company, whatever you're doing, that's what happens. And I'm great with my grandkids. I make time. I go and, or they come see. I spend quite a bit of time, as much as I can with them. But you can't get that time back. They're gone. They've grown up. They're gone. I used to go and watch them all play football, play cricket, go and watch them, whatever bits and things are involved at school when I could. But you can't get that back. You just cannot buy that back. And that is a killer.
And lastly, what are the things that you're fighting against that are just part of your makeup from where you came from and who you are?
What am I fighting against at the moment? I'm fighting against nature. What have I had? In the last 2.5 years, I've had 6 operations. I've had 5 on my back and spine surgery in my neck, disc replaced, disc fused. I had a big problem with that. And I had open heart surgery about 10 weeks ago. So that was that. But, I'm all right. I'm ready to go.
You look great. You probably discharged yourself from open heart surgery right off the table.
I woke up and there was this fella with this silver spike and a hammer trying to hammer it into the chest.
If I could add one attribute, Frank, that makes you who you are and why you are who you are, it's because of this really approachable, affable, natural generosity. I came over here in just the last decade, and every time I talk to you, every time I engage you, it feels like I'm talking to a peer. And I'm not. I am talking to a legend. I'm talking to an elder. But you make it feel like we're on the same level, and that
listen, we are. That's where we all, you're doing your job, I'm doing mine, and between us, our jobs complement each other. That's what we do. You're getting the message out there for when we got shows on, and I respect that and understand that. And
you're an ambassador to this sport and to this country. Like, really, I'm not just blowing smoke. It makes me feel good, and it made me feel welcome 10 years or so ago, when you allowed me to cover your fights and really embrace me as just like a young guy starting out in this country anyway, and show me that kind of respect and being willing to sit with me for as long as you have today.
It's a pleasure, my friend.
It's just an example of that, and I'm going to take your time again another day. But for today, thank you so much, as always, for being who you are. And I hope to give people an idea of just who that is with this piece. So we'll talk to you again. Radio Rahim with Frank Warren.